It's a beautiful Thursday morning here in Lagos. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the program. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Less than 2 days to the new year. Compliments of the season, everyone. And we're continuing looking at some of the events that shaped 2021. We began with the issue of insecurity. You've heard about insurgency in Northeast, banditry in Northwest. What happened to be some form of violent headsman farmers clash in Southwest earlier in the year, and the list is endless. But today we're paying attention to court-related killings, and I'm going to share some timeline with you. The year began on 1st January with a mechanic and 3 others killed in fresh Edo court war, and these are headlines that made the news in the year. January 7, 2021, anxiety as court wars rage in Lagos, Ondo, Osun. 21st March 2021, cultists kill 4, injure 3 in deadly attacks in Ojo and the Bejuleke area of Lagos. On 14th July, 1 beheaded, 5 others killed in Delta. It's a long list of a sad tale that has been told in the course of the year. And if you come down to December, you must have heard about the story of Sylvester Oromoni, and some of the headlines that made the news would be Lagos probes students' alleged murder by kid cult members. And we're hearing that this is not just an issue within the 4 walls of the higher institution, that it's also trickled even to the high schools. 14th December, suspected cultists set student on fire on Osun State University. So we thought that let us get a proper understanding of all of these issues, and indeed, how do we begin to solve what appears to be a national emergency right in our midst. So I'm joined this morning by someone who should know, someone who perhaps can help us understand better what the issues are. Comrade Ernest Amadasun is chairman body of founders of the New Black Movement of Nigeria. And another member of that group, of that organization, has joined us via link from Edo State Barrister Isimeme Iriogbe, and we'll be talking to him shortly in the course of this conversation. Comrade, thank you so much for finding time to come.
It's a pleasure.
All the way. So I'd like us to begin with some historic background. We're told that in the 1970s that some Nigerian students founded a fraternity to fight against oppression and racism. And, today, a lot has changed, from what the ideology used to be and what it is now. Talk to us about the things that you know as a younger person about this movement.
Thank you very much, Nifemi. It's the New Black Movement of Africa, not New Black Movement of Nigeria.
Okay.
Yes, just as you rightly said, these were groups found under very good ideals. And it's not as if the ideals have changed, but I think what we are seeing today is effects of the deterioration of society and the depravity that is inherent in the larger society at large. But that aside, when you talk about cultism, it's good to have a historical background to cultism. In African societies, cults used to be a part of the traditional system, but as time evolved, even in the days of nationalism, we were fighting for independence and all that, most of these groups, had some contributions which they put into such movements, because if you notice during the colonial rule, even in the religious sectors like the Anglican and all others, there were foreigners, people who were either the British or whatever who they came with a religion and all that. So in the process, they also came with their own cults or secret societies, as it was commonly referred to as at then. And those secret societies, as at then, when they came here, naturally, the system evolved its own, and local societies were also formed. Now a little bit a hybrid from what the old cultural systems were. Because now it now became, because then when the cults were part of the system, we had a traditional system, But after then, when the colonialists came, there was no separation between the traditional system of government and governance per se. So at the end of the day, it evolved too, and then it was commonly referred to as secret societies. They had noble ideals until sometime in the 60s or early 70s. when issues it seeped into the civil service, a lot of things started to happen. Two major groups as at then, even for the creation of Midwest, you know, it became a political thing. But that was the historical background as at then. But what actually brought attention was when the activities became negative, even in the early 70s and late 60s. You know, when you had the Ogbewe, Ogboni, came to an extent, this violence was visible to a very large extent, that a tribunal or judicial commission had to be formed and secret societies were banned in civil service and all that. But even while they were banned, you know, hybrids started to, you know, but concerning higher institutions, there were fraternities per se. A lot of fraternities were formed. But not all of them had the background of fraternities. Some had an ideology behind it, which was different from just having friends coming together. You know, they had an ideology that was talking about black solidarity, you know, with the history behind the black man at that time, what he's caused through history and what he has been through, and even the definition of blackism, as it were. You know, you found out that others too decided to form something which was also a little bit different, although there was brotherhood, but a little bit different from other fraternities, for this became a movement. You know, but with this background, even our youths of today, I do not even think they even understand what the issues are. You know, but most disturbing is the fact that even the definitions are not well put out. Because when you talk, we are talking about cultism now. What is the definition of a cult? The definition of a cult is a society that has something to do with, has some religious connotations and all that, rituals and all. But most of these things we are seeing, are they really cults? But it's a misnomer to refer to them as cults. You know, but it is what society refers to it. But to us,
what would you call them? When
you look at it, that is, we're talking about criminal activities. You know, these are criminal activities. And when there's a criminal activity, the best thing is to focus on the crime. Is to focus on the crime and try to solve it from that particular angle. But if society cannot define it, it becomes a hydra-headed problem, which it is as of today. You find people who are arrested for armed robbery, the next thing they say they are cultists. They do not even know the meaning of what cultism entails. What cultism is. They are just gangs, rebel gangs, criminal gangs. You know, but the real problem is the problem of sanctions and enforcement.
So the first fraternity began as early as the 1950s. They called themselves the Pirates. They chose someone who is now a renowned professor to be their captain at the time. We're told that they wore baggy pants, you know, and headscarves instead of the customary suits, as their rejection of the elitist structures. But do you think that founding societies like, you know, the Pirates and, you know, the NBM that you...
NBM of Africa?
Yes, that you belong to, the NBM of Africa that you belong to. Do you carry a certain, you know, burden of responsibility, seeing how things have now evolved over the years and the atrocities that many now perform under the umbrella of these names?
It's not a burden of responsibility per se, but civic responsibility. As an organization that wants to promote the good of society, any organization that wants to promote the good of the human being, you know, must be disturbed when youths are being killed every day unnecessarily. So you must decide to get involved. And that is where the issues are. Because society has started to place some stigma on these activities. So people find it difficult to even come out to, because when things like this happen, you fall back to community relationships. It is through communities that you can attack most of these issues. Just like in the campuses then, when you say aluta, you know, when students wake up and say, we are tired of this. And when they do, you see, it checks it to a very large extent. You know, because leaving everything entirely to the law enforcement agencies, knowing their weaknesses, that's where the problem is.
So you joined the NBM what year?
In the year 1983.
while you were a student.
While I was a student.
Talk to us about what the society was like then, the initiation process, what you stood for, and some of the activities that you engaged in.
It was a very, very intellectual process. A little bit of hazing, you know, but very intellectual process. And people were chosen based on their academic, how well they performed academically, you know. And as at then, you know, with the background that we were coming from of Pan-Africanism, so you find out that it was easy to relate with because the issues of almost a third of Africa as at that time was under apartheid oppression, you know. Then African history was replete with a lot of stories, and we held a very close affiliation with the Benin Kingdom, because understanding what the Benin Kingdom also went through in the hand of the colonialists and all that, you know, and knowing how they resisted, and at the end of the day, how they were destroyed and all that. So with this background, and there was something in the campus as at then, the earlier confraternities, I don't know, one way or the other, I think they went out of their ways and started ill-treating and maltreating students. So people need to stand up for them too, you know. And there was a lot of student unionism in our days. So we're involved in student unionism in trying to use that vehicle to address the problems of students generally, you know. So these were activities that were very, you know, very exciting, because there was a cultural background behind it, more or less extracurricular, but socially effective in trying to put society on the path of right.
Were members fingered for criminal activities like we see these days at that time?
Well, even as at then, you know, crime was highly reduced. So it will hardly be, you know, because when individuals have been fingered like this, you notice that generations have come on to generations and all that, with the lack of teaching of history, and all we need is an educational, an enlightenment thing, because what we are seeing today is a breakdown of society.
You talked about a little bit of hazing, and I'm concerned about that, because as a secondary school student, I interacted with some of my friends who had brothers in higher institution who belonged to the secret societies, and it also impacted on their behaviors. You know, what we now know today as bullying, even in our secondary schools, where they beat people, they exert a lot of violence and a lot of force. What is that as a principle? What was that hazing like? What was the initiation process like? And what was it meant for at the time?
Okay, it was fashioned after the age group ceremony in the normal African society. So you see, it was more or less like a brotherhood thing, you know, which we're talking about exercises, little bit of exercises. You are now a man, you know, moving from one age group. So it was fashioned around that aspect, just like Pawine the Kegites, because some of us were members of Kegites too, you know, just like the same thing. They say, meh, you know, things like that. It was just a symbolic.
But do you know that people now die during those initiation processes?
Well, even in my, I have not witnessed that, but it's possible, because even now you cannot put people through something without having a thorough medical check if the person is fit enough. You understand? So all those things are very. But most importantly, the focus was the intellectual angle.
Let us look at the relationship that exists now between the new black movement of Africa and the notorious cultist group known as Black Axe. Because you look at, I like to know if Black Axe is the same as NBM. Maybe we should begin from there.
Okay. Black Axe is not NBM. We are the new black movement of Africa. That's NBM of Africa. Our symbol is an axe. It's not even a black axe. It's a wooden axe. You understand? It's a wooden axe, because the axe is more or less the most important tool in the African.
The logo is the same with that of the black axe. No. The axe breaking the chain in between two hands.
Yes. If you even notice, even as an observer, you know, you realize that there's an attempt to imitate, but it's a poor attempt at imitation. So we'll say they are imposters. So in other words, people, they are more or less plagiarizing. But these are people that you cannot, we can't even identify, because they are not a registered group. We are hearing blackers. And that is where I was talking about these issues of narratives, of focusing on the crime.
Are you saying that as far back as 1983, the NBM wasn't known, the members were not known as Axemen, and you did not publish a magazine named the Black Axe?
Oh, the magazine, the Black, that was a mouthpiece. That was a magazine that was published inside the campus. That is a campus journal.
So at some point, the word Black Axe was related to the NBM?
Yes, that magazine, yes. That was produced in a Uniben in the 70s, in the formative years. And it was a very popular magazine on campus because it could say what other campus journals.
So you can tell why people would easily relate the two.
No, if they are relating the two, to be a misnomer. This is the history book that has been released to clear some of these doubts. It was formed in 1977 as New Black Movement of Africa. So, and the name has never changed.
You are the chairman of the founder members.
Body of founders, yes.
Body of founders. What infrastructure of the society exists in the universities that you are aware of and that is under the umbrella of the NBM of Africa?
All our student members under the NBM of Africa are registered in the zones. They are not registered in the campus.
Okay, so you do not have NBM in campuses?
We have students in campus that belong to NBM of Africa.
Okay.
You know, but they are registered at the zones. Because as at 1977, when these issues of misdirection in posters became too much, we thought about withdrawing from the campuses, which we did as at 1977. You know, I think even that even caused more problems because a lot of people came up with different names. Black Axe, Black Titan, Black this, you know, they just started, all of them started operating in different ways and forms.
So you're saying that there is no direct relationship between the NBM?
Between NBM and Black Axe. But just like I told you, the Mouthpiece, which is a magazine, that magazine today is known as Uhuru. Uhuru magazine.
The name has changed.
It has changed.
But are you concerned about the activities of a group of cultists that uses your name, that even claim to be New Black Movement and go about, you know, killing and maiming? And has there been a track record of your organization coming out publicly to dissociate itself from this group?
We have done a lot. Dissociate yourself from the group, yes, but that is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that people are being killed. So, and the only way we can solve these issues is very easy. You know, there must be a partnership with the security agencies. Over the years, we have done that. We have engaged research into restlessness of youths. We left that aside. From the recommendations, we went ahead, collaborated, tried to collaborate with the security agencies. You know, we suggested ways that some of these groups, why don't we invite them to come out of the background, you know, so that invite them to come out. Let them list their names and their members. You know, with that, it will be easy for security to work when there's a crime.
But we saw a little bit of that. You know, the BBC just recently released a documentary about cultism in Nigeria, and it focused mainly on the Black Axe. And certain people were interviewed. They spoke with a lecturer in Uniben who claimed to have renounced the Black Axe and used the names interchangeably. Another man was interviewed in Benin who has a popular relationship with politicians. He used the name interchangeably, Black Axe, New Black Movement. And the investigative journalist even went ahead to speak with some current members of the cult group. You know, I mean, it was both heartbreaking and, you know, I mean, you can't watch that documentary and not shed a tear at some point. But my question really would be, when you watched that documentary and you saw the name NBM being repeated several times, what was running in your mind?
In the first instance, the focus of NBM in that documentary, you can see, is suspicious. Not just so suspicious, it comes with an intent to malign.
No, but they said
Because
that, just a minute, comrade, the documentary began by establishing that there was a research to identify which of these groups was most violent and was responsible for most of the killings. And then the name Black Axe came up, and that's why the focus was on that particular group.
We have requested for that data using FOI in the UK. Because if they have had such data since 2012, we find it difficult and nobody has been prosecuted with it. If such data is there and people are confessing to very heinous crime, you know, at least some of those information should be with the security agencies. Just like I told you initially. Why I said they set out to malign, why was their focus on NBM? Because we're talking about a crime. And most of the crimes that they were talking about was internet scam, the local Yahoo, internet scam, prostitution, and all that, of which the organization has nothing to do with such crimes, you know. But even at that, concerning those individuals that you're talking about, the other chap, Dr. John Stone, from what I gathered from the BBC I watched, I looked at him as a disturbed person. You know, I saw him as somebody with a psychiatric problem.
Have you spoken with him one-on-one?
After then, no, I did not need to. He was a member of this organization, but in 2016 he was expelled. And he was expelled too because of some of these activities. He was running a program then in Benin City called Rainbow Coalition. And that Rainbow Coalition was, in fact, the cause of most of the so-called killings that we had. Most of these killings, you see, arise from scaremongering, destruction of information. People send information that is not real. And we have gangs on our streets operating under different names and all that. Difficult to arrest. You know, it's difficult to arrest in the sense that even if you use the security agencies, there must be investigation. Just like they say somebody killed somebody, and you go and say, this is the person that killed the person, and the person is arrested.
Your organization wasn't totally blacked out in that documentary. The president of the NBM was interviewed.
Okay, he was interviewed.
Yes, and there was a part where...
Nifemi, excuse me, Nifemi. So that you start understanding some of the things we are talking about.
Yes.
From what I gathered, it was interviewed for like 2 hours. So if an allegation or an allegory is being made concerning NBM, it was not up to 10 seconds. They gave you not up to 10 seconds in that interview.
But here are a few things that I gathered from what he said. So the interviewer came up with the name of the ex-president and tendered evidence linking the former president with some of the dubious criminal activities that we talked about. And one of the lawyers did say that they are anxious to punish him because it is a dent to our reputation. Is that not in a way acknowledging that there might be members in this organization who are culpable in this regard?
Culpable in the regard of
internet fraud, of violence, of killings and maimings.
Of course, every society must have its...
What are you doing, particularly when a president, a former president, is now being fingered in that regard?
Because the issues are very clear. He was indicted. We invited him. In fact, he was suspended. We invited him. What do you know about this? He stated his own side of the story. So, well, he has been indicted, but he was not arrested. He was not charged. Are you with me? He was not charged. He was just indicted. If he had been tried and convicted, our constitution is very clear on it. But we suspended because of the indictment for him to clear himself with the security agencies. That's the best an organization can do. And we cannot be held vicariously for what individuals do with their personal lives.
But the amazing part of this for me is that it's not just a documentary that is making these allegations. The U.S. also recently charged some leaders of New Black Movement of Africa on the issues of internet scam as early as October this year. The U.S. Secret Service said in a statement that an investigation is being conducted alongside with the FBI and has led to some federal charges related to internet scams against 7 leaders in Cape Town, you know, and in other parts of Africa. Particularly when you look at the position of this international organization, categorically naming that the NBM is a criminal organization and a part of the Black Acts. How do you respond to that?
Our response is very clear. That's why we say NBM is the fastest growing black organization in the world right now.
What's the membership strength?
The membership strength is, in fact, all the biometrics will be completed in the next 1 year. I think we're about almost 1.5 to 2 million members worldwide. You understand? And I think some people are scared about, they don't understand what the modus or what the operandi is. But the fact is this: if you say people are involved in internet scams, what is the relationship with the organization? There's no relationship with the organization.
I'm not saying that. It is the U.S. Department of Justice that
the
is saying
U.S. Department of Justice, in all, it's still the same thing. How far have they gone with these investigations? Who have they arrested? Those that they have arrested, how have they arrested? The U.S. investigation you're talking about were about 39 people that were arrested. Out of 39 people, they linked 9 members with NBM of Africa. So why the focus on NBM? Even women, even females were part of those. Also, out of 30 something, about 9, and those 9 were suspended pending when they cleared themselves with those with the authorities. So why was the focus on NBM? What of those other people? Don't they belong to organizations too?
So according to you, the NBM has no relationship with the violent corporal Black Acts. But do you agree that it is possible that criminal elements may have infiltrated the organization? And what are your plans to flush them out?
Every time we try to do that. And that's why, but we have an internal system in place, that seeks to flush out most of these errant and deviants within our midst, and the problem is made worse with the society at large, because it takes a lot of enlightenment, a lot of education, and so many things. And that's why we're starting an institute. We've done most of the foundational works because people need to be enlightened. Because all the problems that we seek to have is because of how society is. So we must take charge of putting society in the right way. We must revolutionize our politics too, so that the right leaders can come up and the right institutions can be put in place.
I saw a report where you threatened to sue the BBC. How far have you gone with that? I think you gave them some 9 days thereabout.
The suit should be on by now. I think the days have expired. We're going to sue them because they need to prove, because it was a hatchet job. It was not well done. There should be the other side. There was no other side. And knowing that we are not faceless, they interviewed people who were wearing masks. It's funny. Just like we were saying about the Dr. John Stone issue. He was giving some graphic details. It was like drama. Sordid drama. For somebody to have such thoughts, is disturbing.
But by watching the documentary, I can tell you for free that I got the position of the NBM because they were well represented and they made their position clear, even adding that I remember that one of them was asking the journalist to give them a copy of the evidence he has against them, and that they are promising to investigate. As we begin to round off, talk to us about what the NBM does as we speak. The NBM is saying it is not a cultist group, it's not responsible for the killings and the maimings. What exactly do you do?
What we are doing right now is a social engineering project, because having realized most of these sordid happenings in our society, you find out that it's only a long-term solution that can work on it. Short-term will just do us, maybe serve as palliatives, trying to face the symptoms and all that. But the long-term solutions is what we are trying to look at and work on. And that's why we're talking about this issue about education, enlightenment, trying to put people, and while there's a major disconnect, especially the youths. We must focus on the youth, the largest group, in our society. Understanding how families are broken down and all that, we need to do something extra, and it is that extra we are focusing on right now, preparing youths to have the right patriotic ideals, and in teaching them what Pan-Africanism entails, gives them a sense of belonging, a sense of enlightenment that in history, in times past, this happened. And when this happened, this was the reaction. When blackism came up, coming down to black power, and now we're talking about blackism, a new form of changing society, turning it into a tool. And that's why we even adopted the MDG goals. if you understand, MDG goals have since transited to SDG. You know, but we adopted the MDG goals because most of the timelines were not met by the countries. But internationally, they moved ahead. You know, but we need that foundation in African societies. So we have adopted it. That's why in our own ways, we carry out most of these activities, charitable, both in health, educationally, and all that, you know, using the spirit of Umoja, Ujama, you know, as the Swahili words, and Ubuntu, you know, trying to, let's show love, not vengeance, you know, and the rate at which the sanctity of life has come down in our country. It would be wrong if we ascribe it to the activities of these miscreants alone, without thinking of the larger society and how far we have gone and what the military bequeathed to us as a people. That has become a problem today, that everybody, that it has become a conflict between democracy and what we actually want, you know.
We have to go now. Comrade Ernest Amadasun is chairman, body of founders of the New Black Movement of Africa. We could not reach Barrister Simeme via Zoom, but we want to say a big thank you for also showing interest to be a part of this conversation. I must say a big thank you.
It's always a pleasure
for sharing your thoughts, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Well, we'll take a break now. When we return, we're going to turn our attention to some of the political events that shaped 2021, and I'll be joined by a two-time member of the House of Representatives. Stay with us.